Today I'll show you how to deploy your API proxy securely to Apigee using GitLab. I'm Renato Arcada, Partner Solutions Architect at GitLab, and I help team members and partners alike learn more about the integrations between GitLab and Google Cloud. So that includes services like Apigee, which helps users and customers integrate their API management into their DevSecOps lifecycle. Let me explain briefly the importance of an API proxy using this very simple illustration. On the left side, you have the app. On the right side, you have the API. Now, apps would need to talk to or communicate with APIs in a very secure manner. To make that work, you need an API proxy that would act as a facade to communicate with that API in a very secure manner. Now, let's take that concept further with Apigee. Apigee creates that publicly facing facade that helps your API become accessible and usable. Now, regardless of where your API backend is hosted, Apigee can simplify how these are being exposed and being used. For this demo, we have a few prerequisites. The first one is a GitLab project. The second is a Google Cloud project with your Apigee API enabled. Third is a service account with the Apigee organization admin role. And finally is a pre-built or pre-existing API which you will use Apigee with. Now let's head on to GitLab for the first couple of steps for the demo. The first step is to integrate our Google Cloud project into the GitLab project. To do that, what I did was created a variable, an environment variable that contains the JSON key for the service account that I had mentioned that had the Apigee organization admin role. So I put that in the GCP underscore SA underscore cred variable right here, the third in the list. Now, once that's done, I had created three other variables, environment variables for our Apigee demo. First one is a variable that contains the Apigee environment name. The second is the project ID for the Google Cloud project, which will serve as the Apigee organization. And finally is the proxy name, the name of the proxy that will be deployed onto Apigee. Now I'm heading on to the web IDE at GitLab to show you the files that we'll be using for this demo. Now take note of the folder structure. On the left pane here, you see I have a folder called API Proxy, which contains two subfolders, Proxies and Targets. And each of those have default .xml files which define how the API proxy will behave, right? And I have a pre-existing proxy deployed at App Engine, which we'll be using for this demo. The next folder is this test folder, which contains the unit test for that API. It's under the features and step underscore definitions folder, and it just has this steps.js. Now, the expected output for this API is very straightforward. We just need to access the API in App Engine and then just get a successful response. Now let's take a look at the CI/CD pipeline for this deployment. There are 5 stages: fuzzing, setup, test, deploy, and undeploy here at lines 2 to 6. This essentially is the flow of our demo for today. Now, here at lines 8 to 10, it will show you that I don't even need to write the fuzzing test for the API. I'm using GitLab's AutoDevOps for that. But I do need to define variables that will be used for that fuzzing test from lines 12 to 16. Now, I also need to define a hidden job called before setup, because this will be shared across a couple of jobs, and we use the dot notation to hide it. So GitLab will not execute this job as is. Now, at lines 20 to 23, this is the part where we are using the JSON key, which is defined in the environment variable, and using that as our authentication information. Now, lines 25 will define the bundle job, which is the setup stage. This is the part where our API proxy will be zipped and saved into a zip file, and then it will be used as an artifact for succeeding stages. Now at lines 36 to 44, this is the test that's using the Cucumber unit test that we defined that I showed you earlier. Now I'm using the node.js image for this, and it's very straightforward. It'll just install the apigeelint pack code, and then install the Cucumber unit test so that our test will be run. Now, apigeelint is the linting tool specifically for Apigee API proxies. So this is very useful if you're using Apigee for your API deployment. Now, the deployment piece, this is very important because this is the part where our API proxy will be deployed to Apigee using GitLab CI. Now, a few things are happening here. Let me explain. So line 48, we're using the extends keyword to tell GitLab that we'll be reusing the before setup stage here, or this hidden job, sorry. And then after that, we're going to be using the Apigee CLI image. So we'll be able to run this Apigee CLI commands in that container. And then the Apigee code or commands are defined right here. So take note of the Google Cloud project ID, the proxy name, and the Apigee environment name, the variables that we defined at the beginning. And finally, the undeploy. Once you've deployed this API proxy to Apigee, we'll clean up and use the undeploy stage to remove the resources that we had created using this demo. Now, this is a manual step, so anytime you wish to do this undeploy, we will do this. Now I have completed and ran the first stages of the pipeline. As you can see on the screen, the fuzzing, the setup, test, and deploy were all successful. Now I will now head on to Apigee to show you the API proxy that we deployed. Heading on to the API proxies here. Now I created this API proxy called Apigee demo, and as you can see, it was deployed successfully. Now if I wanted to clear this and delete this, I would run the undeploy stage, which is the remaining stage on the pipeline right here. Now there you have it. I was able to show you how to deploy your API proxy to Apigee using GitLab. With the help of API fuzzing, the unit test, and the bundling of your API proxy, I was able to show you that you can deploy your API proxy with security and efficiency using GitLab.